Well, before we start, I will mention the one thing that the festival organizers are most insistent about, and that is to say that books will be available after the panel is through. Greenlight Bookstore will be set up outside this room. And the authors will be signing their books at signing table A. Good afternoon. I'm Gabriel Sanders of Tablet Magazine, and welcome to our panel on Light and Darkness with László Krasznahorkai, Andrés Neuman, and Naja Marie Aidt. I know you have a lot to choose from today, so we're pleased that you've chosen to join us. I'd like to thank the festival organizers for asking me here, and also for developing the day's theme. Light and darkness are basic concepts, essential ones really, and they've proven an unusually rich source of material for all of us. But first, let me introduce our panelists. László Krasznahorkai was born in Gyula, Hungary in 1954. He gained considerable recognition in 1985 when he published Satan Tango, which he later adapted for the screen in collaboration with the filmmaker Béla Tor. In 2015, Krasznahorkai was awarded the Man Booker International Prize for Fiction. In their statement, the judges remarked, "What strikes the reader above all are the extraordinary sentences, sentences of incredible length that go to incredible lengths, their tone switching from solemn to madcap to quizzical to desolate as they go their wayward way." Andrés Neuman was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and today lives in Granada, Spain. He has published novels, short stories, collections of poems, aphorisms, and travel books. His first novel to be published in English, Traveler of the Century, won a host of prizes in Spain and beyond. His second novel to be translated into English, Talking to Ourselves, was longlisted for the Best Translated Book Award. His collection of short stories, The Things We Don't Do, is published by Open Letter. His books have been translated into 20 languages. Originally from Greenland, Naja Marie Aidt is a Danish poet and author with nearly 20 works in various genres to her name. Her work has been anthologized in the Best European Fiction series and has appeared in leading American journals. Her collection Baboon was published in the States by Two Lines Press in 2014. Her most recent collection is called Rock, Paper, Scissors. Okay, with that out of the way, I wanted to ask you, Naja, about Greenland. So we're thinking about light and darkness, and here we have a panelist who hails from one of the lands of the midnight sun. I have a friend who went to Alaska during the summer, and it was so sunny that he stayed awake for 6 straight days and had a full-blown manic episode.
Yeah.
Is that a common thing?
It is, for sure. The winters are completely dark. I mean, it's like nighttime 24 hours a day. And I remember as a kid, I lived in a small village up north, and it was very isolated. No one would come, no one from the outer world would enter the village all winter because the ocean was frozen, the helicopters couldn't fly because the weather was bad, and my mom suffered from winter depressions, and she would be laying down most of the time completely depressed. So that was, and I remember, when you saw people in the street, you only saw like shadows. So it's really mysterious, but I mean, I was born there, so I didn't take notice so much. In the summer, though, people went mad. I mean, they would go fishing in the middle of the night, they would get drunk, they would sing in the streets, they would, collapse and get carried to the hospital. So I think it kind of shaped me as a writer to grow up in such a weird place with extreme weather conditions, and light and darkness is, I'm very aware of it when I write, for sure.
Now, you told me you prepared something to read about darkness.
Yes, I found a scene here in my novel Rock, Paper, Scissors that I thought I would read. So this novel is about a guy who falls into a huge crisis. It's a book about male identity and gender, and it's at the same time some sort of crime fiction. But this is a scene where he's visiting his family in the countryside, and he goes out to find a barn. The wind has died down. Apart from the rustling leaves, it's quiet. Standing motionless on the patio outside the sunroom, Thomas listens. Not a cloud in the sky, but he can't see the moon. The darkness seems completely impenetrable. Then he senses something near the house. The cold air is moist and heavy to breathe. From where he stands, he can just make out the barn around 600 feet ahead, a behemoth. He feels uneasy. It's as though something is tugging at his diaphragm so that he can hardly stand still, as though something manic inside him is rapidly filling with air. Carefully he steps forward. The sheep are gray-white, hazy specks in what must be their pasture. A horse whinnies nearby. He sees the parked cars and some tall trees beside the main house. He tilts his head and glares up at the flicker of distant stars. A cat rubs itself against his leg. He jumps, startled, and stumbles forward until he reaches the decaying wooden barn. He follows its surface with his hands. Here's the sliding barn door, but where's the paddock door? He tries to recall where it is, but nothing comes to mind. The darkness is also in his head, and there's nothing more to do than feel his way forward until he finds it. And so, like a blind man hunched over, his breathing raspy and erratic, Thomas O'Malley Lindstrom slowly circles the large enclosed structure. He trips over a branch. His shoes sink into the mud. Splinters jab into his fingers and hands. An owl hoots close by. Something whizzes toward him, then suddenly changes direction. Bats. He bumps into something made of cement. Not until he's halfway around the barn does he finally locate the door. It creaks when he pushes it open. In the middle of the room, there's a large wooden stove with a glass front. A crisp orange fire crackles in it, giving off some light.
Wonderful. Do people in the audience here know about Make Music New York? They're this organization that does events 2 days a year on the winter solstice and the summer solstice, and there are these musical happenings all around the city. And there was one in particular this last December that was notable. It was a performance of Schubert's song cycle Winterreise that was at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. And I was thinking about it because the Winterreise figures centrally in Andrés's novel Traveler of the Century, particularly the last section about the organ grinder who just plays and plays even though nobody listens. So it's an interesting depiction of the artist. You know, are we playing for others or just for ourselves? So I don't know, maybe this coming December we can have a staged reading from...
With my coat, I hope. Well, thank you very much to you for coming here, and I'm very proud of being in such a good company. I must say that I was born in Andalusia, where darkness barely exists. And that's why perhaps I was so fascinated by the concept of the German winter, because I think that contrast, thinking of this opposition, light and darkness, contrast is the most compelling thing for artists in general. Not choosing between dark and light, but how to inhabit the borders of darkness and light, how to alternate them. And if you're talking about Schubert, well, this is a wonderful example of it. These classical music pieces, sonatas, for example, where you have one cheerful, fast-paced movement, and then you have long, dark one. So it's only by alternating dark and light that you can get to the proper emotion, I would say. Having to choose between them would be like unfair and not true.
Is there something you'd like to read?
I was thinking of singing a Schubert song, but then I gave it a second thought and I decided not to, because our audience deserves something better. So yes, I'm reading a short story. I mean, one of the shortest one of this last book you mentioned before, The Things We Don't Do. I was thinking that sometimes writing consists of, I don't know what to do with English prepositions. Really, guys, I mean, why did you invent phrasal verbs? I mean, it wasn't really necessary. You know, it's it's not the same run into someone that run over someone, and etc., etc. So I think that sometimes writing consists of leaving things in the dark in order to allow the text to be more eloquent, more bright. So, and I think that fits particularly to short stories, where, as like in poetry, you have to choose what not to say, and choose just a small ray of light, which will be what you're actually writing or saying. And there's an analogy about this, which is as well the joy of not doing things. We're always insisting in doing things as if we were applying the productive logic to aesthetics. So we insist in doing things with people that art is action, but it could be as well contemplation, refusing to do the things. And love can be as well not doing anything in particular with the right company. And the short story that I'm reading to you reflects a bit on this contradiction of the is not doing something an action, or is to leave things in dark a form of light. The things we don't do. I like that we don't do the things we don't do. I like our plans on waking when morning slings onto our bed like a cat of light. Plans we never realize because we get up late after imagining them for so long. I like the anticipatory tremor in our muscles from the exercises we list without doing, the gyms we never join, right? The healthy habits we conjure as if simply by desiring them, our bodies will glow from their radiance. I like the travel guides you browse with that absorption I so admire, and whose monuments, streets, and museums we will never set foot in, as we sit mesmerized in front of our milky coffees. I like the restaurants we don't go to, the light from their candles, the imagined taste of their dishes. I like the way our house looks when we picture it refurbished, its startling furniture, its lack of walls, yes, its bold colors. I like the languages we wish we spoke and dream of learning next year as we smile at each other in the shower. I hear from your lips those sweet hypothetical languages. The words fill me with purpose. I like all the proposals, spoken or secretive, which we both fail to carry out. That is what I like most about sharing our lives. The wonder open up elsewhere, the things we don't do. Thanks.
That was terrific, thank you. 4 years ago in The New Yorker, the critic James Wood wrote a thoroughgoing introduction to László Krasznahorkai and his work. I'm going to quote a few lines. Krasznahorkai is probably best known through the oeuvre of the director Béla Tarr, who has collaborated with him on several movies, including Damnation, Werckmeister Harmonies, and the vast, overwhelming Satan Tango, which runs to more than 7 hours. These are bleak, cavernous works, which in their spectral black and whiteness Sparse dialogue and reticent scores seem to want to revert to silent pictures, and they offer a filmmaker's analog of Krasznahorkai's serpentine sentences in their tracking shots, which can last as long as 10 minutes. So my question is, what do you make of this analogy? Is a tracking shot really the same as an illuminated sentence?
No, this is absolutely different.
Mm-hmm.
To make movie and to watch movie, and to read a book or to write a book, this is two absolute different territorium. And when we made these movies by Bela, I never want to make an adaptation, and he never wanted to. And my task was only to help him that his ship could go without any problem or difficulties. My task was actually to understand him, what kind of movie is, which he know about, which he imagined, and if I could understand it, after that I helped him. That was my task, not an adaptation. I never suffered of the difference between the literary field and the field of the screen. I suffered very much, but not about this distance. The suffering belonged to making movies with Bela, because he needed suffering to do something, and we all behind him had to suffer as well. Without was absolute nothing to imaginable for him, and so my main task was actually easy, to help him, to understand him. And if he could convince me that the next movie is unbelievable important for the world, then I could, and I tried to do my best. But the literary field is absolutely different, and there is a difference, but there is a similarity, maybe, the long short and the long sentences, but not for me, because what does it mean, long short or long sentence? I hope our shooting was never too long, and my sentences are never too long, because that would be a problem. But actually, a sunrise is too long. I ask always. Have you ever seen a sunrise from the beginning until the end?
Probably not.
It hurts to do that, because the time change itself, and it takes time. And 7.5 hour, which is of movie Satan Tango. This is actually,
Maybe some publisher would say, we should edit that sunrise.
yeah. And to do that, we should on the literary field to follow a breath and to understand the rhythm of this breath. And if we can find that the right rhythm of the breath, we have then some hope to do something valuable.
Now, is there a long but not too long sentence that I could ask you to read?
What more, I try to prove that I've written not only long sentences. First, I read it in English, but after that, because this is so short, also in Hungarian, because in this case, the meaning is too close to the language. And that's why maybe not unnecessary to hear that also in Hungarian. I need something. Please, my glasses from my... Sorry. I forget it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would leave everything here. The valleys, the hills, the path, and the jaybirds from the gardens. I would leave here the petcocks and the padders, heaven and earth, spring and fall. I would leave here the exit routes, the evenings in the kitchen, the last amorous gaze, and all of the city-bound directions that make you shudder. I would leave here the thick twilight falling upon the land, gravity, hope, enchantment, and tranquility. I would leave here those beloved and those close to me, everything that touched me, everything that shocked me, fascinated and uplifted me. I would leave here the noble, the benevolent, the pleasant, and the demonically beautiful. I would leave here the budding sprout, every birth and existence. I would leave here incantation, enigma, distances, inexhaustibility, and intoxication of eternity. For here I would leave this earth and these stars, because I would take nothing with me from here, because I've looked into what's coming, and I don't need anything from here. Én itt hagynék mindent. A völgyeket, a dombokat, az ösvényeket és a szajkókat a kertből. Én itt hagynék csapot és papot, eget és földet, tavaszt és őszt. Itt hagynám a kivezető utakat, az éjszakákat a konyhában, az utolsó szerelmes pillantást, és a városok felé vezető összes borzongató irányt. Itt hagynám a tájra ereszkedő sűrű alkonyt, a súlyt, a reményt, a bűvöletet és a nyugalmat. Itt hagynék szeretettet és közelít, mindent, ami meghatott, megrendített, magával ragadott és felemelt. Itt hagynám a nemest, a jó akaratút, a kellemest, s a démonian szépet. Itt hagynék minden rügyfakadást, minden születést és létet. Itt hagynám a varázslatot, a rejtélyt, a messzeségek, a kimeríthetetlenségek, és az örökké valóságok kábulatát. Mert itt hagynám ezt a földet, és ezeket a csillagokat. Mert nem vinnék semmit magammal innen, mert belenéztem abba, ami jön, és nem kell innen semmi.
Ez gyönyörű volt. That was beautiful. I thought we could do a little exercise. I brought a text, a kind of text on the theme of light and darkness. I'm sure you're familiar with it, though perhaps not in English. It's just a few lines. Then I'm going to ask you to respond. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, one day. Thoughts?
Hoo-ha. It's difficult to quell this. Difficult. It's difficult.
I'll tell you what I found surprising. I knew I wanted to revisit it. I guess I'd forgotten that it was the first day. I don't know. Maybe you know the Bible better than I do. I was surprised that it was the first day. I was also surprised by God's self-satisfaction. That, you know, he does this, he likes it. I mean, he's not like most artists I know, that, you know, he does his thing, he's pleased, and he moves on.
He's God, you know. Well, I thought about, before I came here, and maybe I could say that in addition to this, that if you think about light is always something that hits you. It's something that shines on you, where darkness is more like you get embraced by darkness. And it comes slowly. So it's like everything visible disappears very slowly. There's so many grades of darkness and light, and it's like you disappear where light is just, well, God figured that out, is to reveal, to make the world visible. But light is such a brutal thing, you know. I mean, it's so the sun is so dangerous. I mean, it's an enormous force.
Cancer causing.
Also that, yeah.
I'm too frightened to answer, but I'm not sure about the word divide. I mean, the verb and the division between those pure strengths or powers, light and darkness. As I said before,
You're taking issue with the English translation, or?
Oh, no. I don't think I could remember the original in this case, but I read it a long time ago, like a few thousand years ago, so I cannot really remember it. But as I was saying, and even in the Bible, you can find cruelty and generosity and blood and love, everything in the same book, sometimes in the same page, sometimes in the first sentence, particularly if he's writing. Mm-hmm. And so I would be more comfortable with the idea of mixing, reuniting dark and light. Because I think that tragic comedy is the genre of reality, and as well the genre of the Bible, so to speak.
I try to go far away of this text. Who is the author? And that's why so far as I can. And I remember a little bit back to my earlier time in absolute hopeless Hungary, in a time of Cold War, when the time was absolute timeless, and the only hope was that the next day will be absolutely the same than today. And in that time, I remember so that between the darkness and lightness, we couldn't make a difference, because that was very difficult to decide which is worst. To know that you are in a darkness and to see the hell, or if you are in a lightness and you see this is the hell. And this is the hell, I mean, we thought not of Hungary or the communist territoriums, but for us was Hungary and the daily life and the hopelessness. That was absolute identical with the world. And And in this situation, we had absolute no hope. For example, I decided so that I loved a little bit more to be in darkness with a small light, which allowed me to read a book, not this one.
Well, I guess from the sublime to the ridiculous, I had a technological question. More and more of the reading that we do is happening on light-emitting devices, computer screens, phones, e-readers. But this is a book festival, and I would feel wrong not to cast this development as a sort of tragedy. And of course, don't forget Greenlight Bookstore. But change is coming. We've talked a lot about how technology alters the reading experience. But my question here is different. Does it change the task of the writer? If a person is going to pick up your words on a screen, does that alter how you produce them?
I'm not particularly apocalyptic with this subject. It's not either analogical or digital. I think we're living both realities at the same time. It's just like light and darkness again. Let's think about why do we have to choose? I think that the lightning book is a redundancy. Every single book is a lightning device. And printed books are a technology by themselves too. Are the technological changes or technological new devices are changing the literature? We could think of the opposite question. How literature and arts have influenced the technological devices? I mean, how can you think about Twitter without the aphorisms? How can you think of those old friends called blogs, which are supposed to be dying, just like the novel is in the last 120 years, without the diary, the literary column, the literary criticism? What I mean is there's constant, I have the constant sensation that we're not confident enough in the power of literature, and we're always frightened for it to end. It's not gonna end, because it's a human activity that will never stop until we destroy this planet. Which are we doing? Which we are doing, but that's a totally different problem. But I mean, it's a human need, and there is nothing capable of destroying or ending literary needs. And in this case, do the book or the reading experience change depending on whether I'm reading it in ebook or a printed book? Well, perhaps personally, I think that when I need to have a really slow, joyful, attentive experience, I prefer a printed book. But if I'm just reading partially the text in order to search for certain things, I find the searching tool extremely useful, and I found myself trying to use it in a printed book. You know, that happens. But I think those are two forms of love, the printed book and the digital book, and I don't see why we should choose. We can have both, and we will have both forever, I would say. And hey, this old device called printed book have lasted a few crises already. So don't go thinking it will be so easy to finish them.
Well, I'm old enough to have been written books on a typewriter and by hand. And I remember, I mean, it took forever, and it was in a way, a different writing process, because being so obsessed, for instance, of not making any errors when you were doing the final script. I remember that as a very stressful thing. So I think the way we write when we use computers, it's already made for the screen, you know, because we delete in a different way, we edit in a different way, and we overlook the script constantly, the whole thing at the same time. Whereas when I was writing on a typewriter, I would start here and then, you know, move forward in a different way. So I think it is, yeah, yes. I think one thing that I really don't like to read on screen is poetry. I do think that poetry is so, it's such a, in a way, maybe it's a wrong word, but a physical, it has a sensitivity to it, and there's so little text on this every page. And I do like the feeling, the physical feeling of holding the book and being able to go through it and go back and stay. I mean, it seems like when you read a printed book, it's easier to stay at the same page for a long period of time. But when you do it on screen, you want to move. There's this different pace in a way. You want to move forward at a different pace. And the verses, yeah, exactly.
Distribution of the verses.
Yeah, exactly.
If you enhance the typography, then the distribution of the verses will change. So it's particularly tricky. That.
Yes, and with poetry, often you need to see the form. You need to see the form. So you need to see more than you can see in one single street. You need to see 2 pages, for instance.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, devices are never dangerous for the literature. Never. Your pen is danger for literature? No. But before the pen, it was a little bit different device what writers and poets used. And now, later, I remember such poets than, I don't know, in Hungarian literature, than Endre Ady, who said that I will never use a typewriter because I'm a poet. And now that means absolutely nothing. I think so. I think so that devices are absolutely not dangerous for literature. People can be dangerous for the literature. This is my opinion. People who, for example, doesn't read books, poetry or something else, they could be dangerous for the literature.
So we have about 10 minutes left. If there are questions from the audience, we'd be happy to entertain them. I guess, does anybody have a question? Any light to shed? Right here. Can I repeat the question? So it's in the film, the Turin Horse. Is that what the English title is? The Turin Horse. That there's a scene where the sun goes out. And so the question was, what does that mean?
Actually, the light went out, not only the sun. That was not a cosmic catastrophe, but the light disappeared. And what does it mean? No light, darkness. That's the meaning. The Turin Horse is a creation story, but from the back, actually, from the beginning, from the end, in 6 etaps, 6 days. In this film and in the script, we spoke absolutely nothing about the 7 days, only the first 6 days.
Yeah, a question here. So there was an expression of gratitude that Mr. Krasznahorkai read in Hungarian as well as English. It's the poetry of the language really came through.
But in this case,
And she is Hungarian.
Andrés and our colleague should be read actually in Spanish and Danish. The Danish language, for example, is absolute fantastic. This is one of the most sad language in the world. So beautiful, really. And the Spanish, everybody knows Spanish. How beautiful. Except me. Not before that, but I feel guilty, but not before that. Next to our movie or my books, we cannot help for these people or the suffered people. I don't know. No, I have not depend on this fact. I'm guilty that I cannot help for every suffered people, of course. And maybe that's the reason that I write. I don't know why I'm writing, but maybe this is one of the reasons that I should do anything. And because I cannot help for every suffered people, that means for me, to find a form.
No, since this is literary festival, I feel compelled to add something. I mean, writing is action. It's not like if you're writing, you're not in action. Writing is a vehicle for memory, is a vehicle for discussion, is a vehicle to denounce something, is a vehicle to share other people's emotions. And if that's not action, I really don't know what action is. I wanted to say that.
Yeah, plus writing can be very political and, tell about important things that everybody should know. So, and there's no, I mean, it's possible to be both an activist and a writer at the same time. We don't write constantly.
Right, maybe just one last question over here. A little louder. So the question, as I understand it, is this. Mr. Krasznahorkai has said, even though he's well known as a collaborator on films, that he's not going to do that anymore. And so the question was, what does that statement mean exactly? Or is it a statement?
The statement that we don't make any other film. Oh, that was a great news for me, of course. And after our movie, The Man from London, I advised Bela to finish with the movie because that was enough. But he wanted to find the form of a farewell of the movie and so on, and that was a Turin horse. For me personally, that was a opening a freedom, because the suffering was really serious when we make movies, and after more than 25 years, I don't know how long took it away, that was enough. And but this is a ship with one captain, and the captain is Béla Tarr, not me. And Béla should decide that it's finished or not. And the crew could follow him. That's all. My career in a literary field is absolutely different. That it was always very different than my collaboration with Béla Tarr. He was my friend, and I helped him. That was my personal thing. I am not a scriptwriter. I never been a scriptwriter, And after this decision by Béla, I do as I did before. Sorry.
Well, it hasn't been 25 years, only about 48 minutes. But thank you very much for coming to our panel. I'll repeat that books by all three of our panelists will be available at Table A outside, which is being run by Greenlight Books. And I'd like to thank you for this wide-ranging and illuminating discussion.